Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can change everything. What you are about to hear is a story of generosity, faith, and an unexpected twist that no one saw coming. Michael Johnson wiped his hands on the frayed apron and glanced at the stack of bills on the counter. Each envelope represented a debt he couldn't pay, a landlord who had stopped answering calls, and a bank threatening to repossess his diner. Yet, as he looked out the window at the dimly lit street, he noticed a familiar figure shuffling in the shadows. A man who had become a regular presence outside his diner. A man whom most people ignored, laughed at, or called a bum. Michael had watched him for weeks. The man, whom he had come to know as David Smith, always carried the same tattered bag, wore the same worn coat, and always looked as if the world had abandoned him. And yet, there was something about him that struck Michael, an undeniable quiet dignity in the way he held himself, the subtle way he observed life around him without complaint. "Another plate for you, David?" Michael asked, his voice soft. The man's eyes flickered up, startled at being noticed, before relaxing into a faint smile. David nodded, his hands trembling slightly. "Thanks, Michael," he murmured. The diner was nearly empty that night. A lone streetlight outside cast its glow through the dusty windows, illuminating the peeling wallpaper and worn wooden booths. The smell of fried bacon and simmering stew lingered in the air, a comforting contrast to the uncertainty that hung over Michael like a storm cloud. He ladled a generous portion onto a plate and set it in front of David. The man's hands hovered over the food, almost afraid to touch it. "You don't have to. I've got nothing to give," David said, his voice cracking. Michael shook his head firmly. "Don't worry about that. Just eat. Everyone deserves a warm meal." A soft silence fell over the diner as David began to eat. Michael watched him, feeling a mixture of pity and admiration. He knew the risk he was taking. Every plate, every free meal, chipped away at the little he had left. But he couldn't help himself. There was a code he lived by, a belief that the world could be a little kinder if someone took the first step. The last customer left, the bell on the door jingling faintly. Michael wiped down the counter, thinking about the looming bank notice and the rent he hadn't paid in months. The whispers from the neighbors haunted him. That's why he's broke, they'd say. Always feeding the world, never thinking about himself. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the faded menu on the wall. Maybe they're right, he muttered to himself. But even as he said it, he knew he couldn't stop. He had given too much of his heart to do otherwise. Hours later, when the diner was empty and the steam from the kitchen had cleared, David approached the counter. He had finished the meal, but didn't leave immediately. Instead, he stood quietly, his gaze fixed on Michael. You didn't have to do that," David said softly. I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," Michael replied. "Just promise me you'll take care of yourself." David nodded again, and for the first time, Michael noticed a subtle change in his expression. There was a spark in his eyes, a confidence that had been buried beneath layers of hardship. But Michael had no way of knowing that this simple exchange, the last plate of food, would set in motion events that would completely transform his life. The next morning, Michael awoke to the sound of engines outside the diner. He rubbed his eyes and peered out the window, expecting to see the black SUVs of the bank or the letters of a legal notice taped to the door. Instead, what he saw froze him in place. Several sleek black vehicles were parked outside. Men in dark suits emerged, scanning the street with quiet authority. And then, the man who had once seemed like a nobody stepped out of one of the SUVs. David. But now he was unrecognizable. Gone were the tattered coat and the bag. In its place was a tailored suit that made him stand taller than Michael remembered, radiating an aura of confidence and power that made the entire block fall silent. Michael's heart pounded. "David, is that really you?" he whispered, barely daring to speak. The man turned, offering a small, knowing smile. The neighbors and passerby stared, mouths agape. They had mocked Michael for his generosity, dismissed him as a fool, and yet here was proof that one act of kindness, one plate of food, could ripple out in ways no one could imagine. Before Michael could react further, David strode toward the diner. His steps were deliberate, calm, and controlled. Michael stepped outside to greet him, feeling a mix of awe, disbelief, and a flicker of hope he hadn't felt in months. "You remembered," David said quietly. "I never forgot. Not one plate, Not one word. Michael's throat tightened. He opened his mouth to speak, but words failed him. All he could do was nod, understanding that the world had just shifted beneath his feet in a way he never could have predicted. And then, the black SUVs behind David began to unload more people, assistants, security, and advisors. Michael realized, with a mix of terror and excitement, that this was no ordinary man. David had transformed, and now, in an instant, the man he had quietly helped was about to repay a debt in a way that would change Michael's life forever. The morning air was crisp as Michael Johnson stepped outside his diner, still in disbelief over the scene unfolding before him. The sleek black SUVs, the suited men, and most importantly, David Smith, once a trembling, tattered homeless man, now exuded confidence and authority. Michael's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. Something extraordinary was about to happen, and he had no idea just how far it would reach. David stopped a few steps from the diner's entrance and gestured for Michael to join him. "Come outside for a moment," he said, his voice calm, yet commanding. Michael hesitated, glancing back at the diner that had been his lifeline for years. He couldn't believe how much his life had changed in the span of a single night. "Michael, I know this seems sudden," David began, "but I've been waiting for the right moment. You helped me when no one else would. You gave me food, dignity, and faith in people. And today, I'm here to repay that kindness." Michael shook his head in disbelief. I don't understand. How did you—" David smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and humility in his expression. "I can explain everything inside," he said. He motioned toward one of the SUVs. Michael's eyes widened. One of the men stepped forward, opening the passenger door. "I'd like you to sit," David said, nodding toward the luxurious interior. Reluctantly, Michael complied, feeling both awe and unease. Once inside, David leaned back, finally letting his guard down. "I know it must look strange," he said, "but I've been surviving, learning, and preparing. I wasn't always in this position. There were years I struggled, living on the streets, unnoticed and forgotten. But I never forgot the people who treated me with respect, no matter how small their gestures." Michael listened, captivated. He could see the fire in David's eyes, the intelligence and determination that had been hidden beneath layers of hardship. The man who had once been dismissed as a nobody now held an air of sophistication and command that was impossible to ignore. "I want to help you," David continued. "Your diner, your business, it's more than just a place to eat. It's a sanctuary for people who need hope, a reminder that kindness matters. I have the means to ensure you never have to worry about bills or debts again. But more importantly, I want to invest in you, in this community, because of what you showed me." Michael's throat tightened. He had spent months, no, years, struggling to keep his diner afloat. Every kind act, every free plate he had given to strangers, had chipped away at his finances. And now, here was a man he had helped in passing, standing in front of him with the power to change his life forever. You mean it?" Michael asked, voice barely audible. David nodded. "Every word. You didn't hesitate to show me kindness when everyone else looked away. That's rare, Michael, and it should be rewarded. Not because I owe you, but because the world needs more people like you." Michael could barely find words. He thought of the countless nights he had stayed late, washing dishes and preparing meals for anyone who walked in, often going hungry himself. He thought of the neighbors who mocked him for his generosity, the banks that threatened to shut him down. And now, all of that seemed like a distant memory. As they spoke, one of David's assistants handed Michael a folder. Inside were documents outlining a financial plan, investments, and a proposal to modernize the diner. Every detail had been meticulously prepared. Michael's eyes scanned the papers, disbelief and awe blending together. This is... I don't even know what to say," he stammered. David placed a reassuring hand on Michael's shoulder. "You don't need to say anything. Just trust me. I know you've been holding on to hope through every struggle, every challenge. Now, let me help you carry that hope forward." For the first time in months, Michael felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The constant worry, the sleepless nights, the fear of losing everything, it was all gone. And in its place was a sense of possibility he hadn't felt since he opened the diner all those years ago. Later that day, as the first wave of renovations began and employees returned to work, Michael watched from the counter as David interacted with the staff. His manner was gentle yet commanding, respectful yet assertive. Every action reinforced the fact that this was a man who had once been invisible, now shaping the lives of those around him with quiet authority. Michael realized, as he observed the scene, that the act of giving a single plate of food, an act that seemed insignificant at the time, had set off a chain of events far beyond his imagination. One moment of kindness had altered the trajectory of not just David's life, but his own as well. As the day ended and the sun dipped below the skyline, Michael stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. The street that had once seemed unforgiving now felt alive with possibility. People walked past, some glancing in awe at the diner, noticing the subtle changes. And Michael knew that, thanks to one unexpected visitor and the power of compassion, the hardest days were behind him. Little did he know, the events that had just begun would continue to unfold, testing his faith, courage, and generosity in ways he could never have imagined. And somewhere inside, he felt a quiet certainty. The world was about to witness the true impact of a single act of kindness. The diner buzzed with renewed energy. Renovation crews moved through the space, repairing worn booths, polishing floors, and repainting walls in warm, inviting tones. Michael Johnson stood behind the counter, watching the transformation with a mixture of awe and relief. The diner he had feared losing forever now seemed to have a second life, one he could barely have imagined in his darkest moments. David Smith moved through the room with an air of quiet authority. He greeted each staff member with a firm handshake and a sincere smile. "Thank you for everything you do," he said. "This place is only as strong as the people who run it every day." The staff responded with a mix of surprise and gratitude. Many had been skeptical of this sudden intervention, but David's calm confidence and genuine warmth quickly won them over. Michael approached David, still struggling to process everything. "I never thought. I didn't expect any of this. How did you even manage all of it?" he asked, gesturing toward the bustling activity around them. David smiled. "You remember how I told you I've been surviving, learning, and preparing? I wasn't just surviving. I was paying attention. I saw opportunities, connections, and the skills I would need to change my life. But none of it would have mattered if you hadn't given me that first act of trust and kindness. That plate of food, it was more than a meal. It was a message, someone believes in me. That's what gave me the courage to keep going." Michael's throat tightened. "I never imagined a plate of food could lead to this," he said softly, glancing at the improvements in the diner and the staff's energized faces. David nodded. "Kindness is always the first spark, but sustaining it requires vision, effort, and sometimes a little bit of courage." He paused, looking around at the diner. "And that's why I'm here. Not just to repay you, but to help build something bigger than either of us could manage alone." Over the next few weeks, the diner underwent a remarkable transformation. Michael worked side by side with David, learning new management techniques, modern marketing strategies, and ways to expand the menu while maintaining the heart and soul of the place. Word spread quickly. A once struggling diner was now thriving, drawing customers from all over the city. People who had once mocked Michael now stopped in, curious to see what had changed. One evening, as the diner quieted and the last customer left, Michael and David sat together at a small table near the window. The city lights twinkled outside, reflecting in the polished surfaces of the diner's interior. Michael couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come. "You've done more than I could have ever hoped," Michael said quietly. "Not just for the diner, but for me. I don't know, like my life finally has direction again." David leaned back, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You've had that courage all along, Michael. You just didn't realize it. You kept going, even when it seemed impossible. I just helped you see it." Their partnership grew stronger with each passing day. Together, they implemented community programs, offering free meals to those in need and job opportunities to people struggling to find work. Michael discovered a newfound sense of purpose, and David thrived in his role as mentor and partner, sharing the lessons he had learned from surviving life on the streets. But not everyone welcomed the changes. A few of the neighbors, who had once mocked Michael, now whispered rumors and attempted to sow doubt among the staff. Yet, every challenge only reinforced the bond between Michael and David. They faced skepticism and adversity together, proving that integrity, compassion, and teamwork could overcome even the harshest obstacles. One particularly busy evening, as the diner filled with regulars and newcomers alike, a man approached the counter. He looked nervous, holding a small envelope in his hand. Michael recognized him immediately, one of the bankers who had threatened to close the diner months ago. I heard about the improvements," the man stammered, "and I wanted to apologize for doubting you. The diner is thriving, and it's clear that your leadership, your vision, is remarkable." Michael exchanged a glance with David, both of them silently acknowledging how far they had come. The diner was no longer just a business. It was a symbol of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of kindness. As the man left, Michael turned to David. "You know, when I gave you that plate of food, I never imagined we'd be here," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. David smiled. "Neither did I, Michael. But that's the beauty of life. One act, one decision, can ripple outward in ways you can't foresee. And the best part? The story doesn't end here." Michael nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and pride. He had faced the brink of ruin and discovered that generosity, courage, and partnership could create opportunities that were once unimaginable. And together, he and David had proven that even in the darkest times, hope and determination could light the way forward. The weeks turned into months, and Michael Johnson's diner had transformed into a bustling hub of warmth, laughter, and community. What had once been a struggling, near-forgotten establishment was now alive with energy, drawing people from all over the city. The renovations, new menu items, and innovative management strategies had all contributed, but Michael knew deep down that it was the intangible things, hope, faith, and generosity, that truly made the difference. David Smith stood behind the counter one busy afternoon, assisting a new hire with a tricky order. He moved with the ease of someone who had reclaimed his life, someone who had once been invisible on the streets, but now commanded respect effortlessly. Michael watched him, a smile tugging at his lips, realizing just how far they had both come. The diner's success had brought attention from more than just the local community. Food critics visited, stories of the miraculous turnaround appeared in newspapers, and the story of the diner owner who had helped a homeless man only to have him return the favor captivated hearts nationwide. Michael often thought about how one small, compassionate act, a plate of food, had set this all into motion. One evening, after the last customers had left, Michael and David sat in the quiet diner, the glow of the city lights streaming through the windows. Michael poured 2 cups of coffee and slid one across to David. "I still can't believe how all of this happened," he said softly. "It feels surreal." David leaned back, taking a slow sip. "It is surreal, but it's real. You never stopped caring, Michael. Even when everything seemed lost, you kept giving. That's what made all the difference. That's what changed both of our lives." Michael's eyes drifted toward the kitchen, where the staff were cleaning and laughing. "I always thought kindness was a weakness," he admitted, "a reason people took advantage of me. But now, I see that it's actually a strength, and it draws people together in ways money never could." David nodded. "Exactly. It's the ripple effect. One small act, one moment of bravery, and suddenly you're part of something much bigger. You've inspired others, given them hope. And you've reminded me that people can change too, if given the right opportunity." The two men sat in companionable silence for a moment, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The city outside seemed to hum with possibility, a reminder that life could pivot on even the smallest actions. Suddenly, the diner's door opened, and a young woman walked in, holding a small child's hand. She smiled at Michael and David. "I heard about this place," she said, "and I just wanted to say thank you. My son loves your diner. It's become our favorite spot. And seeing people like you two give so much, it inspires me to be better too." Michael's chest swelled with pride and emotion. He looked at David, who offered a knowing smile. "See," David said softly, "the impact goes further than we even realize. You never know whose life you touch just by doing the right thing." As the weeks passed, Michael expanded the diner's community outreach programs. Free meals, job training workshops, and educational opportunities became regular parts of the diner's offerings. David remained by his side, a mentor, a friend, and a living testament to the transformative power of compassion. Together, they built more than a successful business. They built a sanctuary for hope, opportunity, and human connection. One rainy evening, as Michael closed the diner for the night, he stepped outside, umbrella in hand, and looked down the empty street. He thought back to the countless nights he had feared losing everything, to the times he had doubted whether his generosity was worth the cost. And he realized that every sacrifice, every act of kindness, had led to this moment, a life filled with purpose, fulfillment, and unbreakable bonds. David joined him outside, shaking off the rain. "You've come a long way," he said, smiling. "Not just in business, but in life. You gave me a second chance, and together we've given countless others the same." Michael smiled, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. "And to think, it all started with one plate of food," he said. David laughed softly. "Yes, one plate. But that plate carried more than just food. It carried hope, dignity, and belief. And that's something no money can buy." As the rain fell around them, Michael and David stood together, looking out at the city that had once seemed indifferent but now felt full of possibilities. The diner glowed behind them, a beacon of what could be achieved when courage, generosity, and humanity intersected. Michael realized, in that moment, that the journey had not only saved his diner, it had changed him forever. And in helping someone else rise from the depths of despair, he had discovered the true power of kindness, the extraordinary potential in ordinary moments, and the profound truth that even the smallest gestures could reshape lives. The story of Michael Johnson and David Smith became a legend in the city, inspiring countless others to act with compassion, courage, and empathy. And through it all, Michael knew that the last plate of food he had given, once just a simple act of kindness, had sparked a chain of events that would forever remind the world of one undeniable truth: generosity and humanity can change everything.